All right. So could you please go around, introduce yourselves, and tell me your intention for today? Deanna, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. Hi, everyone. I'm Deanna. Um, my intention is to hone into my intuition. It's been a struggle for me as I have not trusted it in the past. And I want to learn to actually trust it as I'm starting to a little bit more now. But
All right, I'm going to pause you.
sorry.
Your intention, that was in the beginning. Now you're talking. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yes.
Can you just state your intention?
Okay.
Thank
To
you.
hone into my intuition.
Thank you. All right. Do you feel the difference?
Yes.
Do other people, do you feel the difference? Okay. All right. Thinking is not intuition. Thank you, Deanna, for sharing.
Thank you.
Sky Dancer Architect, could you please introduce yourself and tell us your intention for today?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Sky Dancer Architect. My intention today is to connect with myself.
Thank you. That's beautiful. T?
Right. Hi, everyone. My name's Tiggy, and my intention for today is to get in touch, to find out what intention really means and to be able to get in touch with it.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean find out what the intention really means? What do you mean by that?
Well, I've always read about it, heard about it, but what does it really mean?
Get in touch with your
I'm
intuition.
not very clear. Yes, and that too.
No. Okay, so you have to have an intention for today or else things won't work. Does that make sense?
All right. Yes.
So when
Okay.
you said that, like, you want to get in touch with your intuition, or, I mean, sorry, I don't even remember what you said. So do you need a moment to like think about your intention?
Okay. To find out what it really means.
What really means?
What intention means. Like, what is it really? What is intention? I'm not very clear on that.
Okay.
And identify that in me.
All right. So
does that make sense?
Do you mean intuition or do you mean intention?
Intuition.
Okay. So you want to find out what your intuition really means?
Yes.
Okay. Is everyone else in the room, were you as confused as I was? Did you also hear intention? I want to find out what intention really means. Okay. So TE, I'm just reporting to you that I was very confused by you, and that's okay. But I just want to point out that confusion is like obviously the opposite of intention. I even did that. I even said intention rather than intuition. Confusion is the opposite of intuition. Thinking is the opposite of intuition. So today we saw thinking and like kind of like talking, right? Deanna, that's okay. That's okay. And also a little bit of confusion. And so what I'd like for all of us to do is just note that, like note how we felt when we heard those things and just note, oh, I feel confused right now. That means I'm not in my intuition, right? Whereas other people, they don't even know what they're thinking or doing or whatever. They don't know that they're thinking. They don't know that they're in their intuition. They don't know that they're confused. And some people are confused 100% of the time, which means I would just say that like intuition is here, thinking is here, and confusion is like all the way over there. You're thinking so much, and also entities are probably attacking you. Okay, all right. So TE, do you mind telling me your intention for today and make it like make it like a magic spell? It has to effing happen or else we're all gonna die.
Okay, my intention is to be in my intuition.
That's beautiful. Did everyone hear the difference? Okay, TE, did you feel the difference? Did you feel the
and I had the pause.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to point out that intuition is extraordinarily clear, right? We all feel it, we all sensed it. It's extraordinarily clear and it's short. So Deanna, when you were saying your intention in the beginning and then you started talking afterwards, it wasn't short. And that was one clue, you know? And so for me, a lot of times, well, number one, I have experience. And number two, I like feel the frequency. So it's that's how I feel it. But wherever you're at right now, you might not feel the frequency. You may not have the experience. So you have to do these like markers. So if it's long, not intuition. If it's not clear, not intuition. And then the additional two things we talked about was like talking a lot or thinking, they're almost the same, or confusion. Confusion is like worse than thinking, right? It's like you think you're thinking, but nothing is happening. So any thoughts, questions, or comments so far on my commentary on even just our intentions for today? Okay, all right. So I would like to give a psychic reading to someone to just start us off. Who would like to receive a psychic reading from me? And I will be asking you to ask me the question, what is up with my intuition?
Okay, I'll start.
All right. Could you please ask me the question?
Yes. So, what is up with my intuition?
All right, thank you. Oh, do you mind turning the audio off? Thank you. All right, so this is what I saw. You can take it or leave it. First of all, I had to get into it because I don't know, it's a little bit difficult to get into, so I'm just going to report that. And what I saw was like your intuition comes through like your head and goes through your body and like comes out the other end. And it's actually quite a nice feeling, but I'm not sure you 100% trust it. So it's like this cyclical white energy like that comes through your body. It's almost like, let's just say, what a non-developed person might think of as sex at a higher dimensional level or something like that. You know, so there's a pleasurable quality, but not of this dimension, right? The thing is, when the intuition comes through your body and out, it comes out you with some kind of fire, like a dragon, and you're kind of like, oh, I don't like that, you know? And so you kind of resist. And then you allow it to happen, you allow it to happen. And since you don't trust this sex, let's say, and you don't like the dragon thing, sometimes you just shut it down and then you just start making yourself extraordinarily busy by doing stupid little tasks. Like I'm going to organize my bookshelf today, you know, like something like really, really mental and physical that is completely related to being in this world and has nothing to do with you relating to yourself. So I'm wondering how that lands.
I really resonate with that. Yeah, you know, when I meditate, I feel like I get into my intuition. Maybe that's perhaps that feeling that you said kind of washes over me. I feel like this energy, and it does feel sexual. Um, and it's something I actually really connected with when I was on retreat last week. I felt like the pleasure, the bliss that I felt could be related to like great sex. Like that's how I literally was telling myself like, wow, that
Okay, I'm
feels
going to
like
pause you
that.
again. I'm going to pause you
Okay.
again.
Okay.
Okay, so your response in the very beginning, that was like, let's
Yeah.
just say you're a little bit more open. You're a little bit more open. Once you
Right.
started storytelling and talking to us about being on retreat and then you started talking again. It was
Okay.
subtle, but I felt it. I'm curious if other people in the room felt it. You can nod yes or no. Okay, all right, Deanna, did you feel it?
Yeah, like
Okay.
yeah, I do recognize that I get into my mind and I start talking to
Okay,
explain myself.
all right. So I'm going to
Yeah.
pause you again
Mhm.
because you could have just said yes.
Yeah.
And it's okay that you added a little bit more, but it's like, sorry, do you mind turning off your audio? Thank you. So what I'm going to get into here is this idea that we have our intuition first, and then we immediately start thinking afterwards. And you can see that with Deanna, it's a habit. It's everyone's habit. Don't worry, it's not just you. I'm not picking on you. It's everyone's habit. And today I really want you to understand the difference of like, okay, that was like an open response. You know, let's say I was in my intuition and I responded. Remember what I said, it's short and it's clear, right? So if it's longer than that, then you're just talking. And this is what I have a bone to pick with a lot of people who are in therapy They just talk. Zero intuition. And to me, intuition is the healing frequency. To me, if you're just in your intuition, whatever you're doing, you could be cleaning your house and you're in your intuition, but if you're just in your intuition, that is in and of itself healing. But when you're thinking, you don't feel safe. Does this make sense? Deanna, I'm going to take a step further, and I'm going to posit that there's a possibility that when you're talking and you're in your mind, you just kind of want to be in control of the situation, because maybe being in your intuition doesn't feel so safe. Okay, I'm seeing nods. All right. Okay, this is interesting. The other two in the room, could you please share with me what that experience was like for you? What was that experience for you to have me be in my intuition where I'm giving a reading? That's an extraordinarily intuitive frequency. So you just kind of had to be there with me, right? What did you feel in your body, right? Like how did you feel as I was giving the reading? How did you feel as Deanna was giving her response and as she was leaving? And then I pointed out that she was leaving, like this whole discussion, like what has your experience been?
Well, I personally feel immediately when you started the connection, the present moment. So I connected with that. There was like no nonsense. It's that present moment. And when Diane was responding immediately, it was in the beginning, but yeah, then the mind got involved. There is that, you can even separate that frequency. Isolate is probably the better word.
Yeah, great. Well, how did you feel personally when you were in the present moment and then you felt Deanna talking? How did you feel personally in your body?
I felt it because I resonated with her. I could feel that, you know, wanting that connection, wanting to trust that intuition within ourselves and not getting.
Okay, I'm gonna pause you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure you're answering the question. Like, you are answering the question, you're giving me a response, but I asked you, how did you feel in your body as Deanna was leaving? And then you started saying, oh, I connect you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I felt nervous.
Great. See, okay. Did everyone feel that? That was more clear, right? That was more present. Look, I'm seeing so many smiles. That was so much. I'm so sorry to say this, like, better. Thank you. Thank you, Sky Dancer Architect. Like, did you feel the difference? Sky Dancer Architect, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you feel the difference when you said nervous versus all the other stuff you said before?
Yes, because it was truth.
Yeah,
Immediately the frequency of truth. It was like, why didn't I say it in the beginning?
That's interesting. All right. So I was pointing out with Deanna, I just kind of threw it out there. Perhaps you have this habit of going into your mind and talking just to be in control of the situation, you know? And for you, Sky Dancer Architect, why do you think you didn't tell us the truth? Which I have to say, if you didn't tell us the truth, that means you were lying, right? And that's okay. That's okay. Everyone does this. It's okay. It's like the default mode. But like, I'm pointing this out, right? This is the whole point of this class. So like, why were you lying? What is your response?
It was my fake self, or, you know, like, it wasn't my real self. It was like immediately hijacked and I was left behind.
Very good.
Hmm.
Why were you hijacked?
Because I still don't trust it's too, the fake self is too strong, wants to come, but I immediately came back and said, no.
Thank you. All right, great. Thank you for sharing. Okay, everyone. Great. This is great so far. Do you feel it? We've done so much work in such a short period of time, and a lot of it just takes, can you imagine? It takes me being extraordinarily present with you. I'm calling you out left and right, right? So if I just let you talk, Deanna, if I just let you talk, or Sky Dancer Architect, if I just let you give us your lie, right? Then we would be having an inauthentic experience right now. And that doesn't feel so good. But like, people are smiling. I think, like, I can tell there's still some nervousness, but also some kind of mixture of relaxation, you know, because we're safe. Like, we're safe with each other and we're safe with ourselves, and fundamentally we are safe. Okay, so I'm going to give a little short lesson about, not a lesson, I'll just speak a little bit, just a second. Okay, so your fake self, which is something I talk about, your false self is, in other words, your ego, and everyone has an ego, right? A lot of people, if you're on a spiritual path, you don't want to be on your ego, in your ego so much, but you kind of don't know how to get out of it because you think it is you and it has so much control over you, just like Skydancer Architect, like it hijacked her, right? And so another thing I teach is that your true self, usually in your shadow, is being cannibalized. Like the energy of your true self is being cannibalized. And this is one way to look at this. You don't have to agree with me, but one way to look at this is that this is like an evil dynamic. It's an evil dynamic because the life force energy of your inner child, who I think of as your true self, like your spiritual mission, you know, the person stuck inside of you who is in your shadow, that life force energy is being given to the fake self, who is like a parasite on your system, right? And so like when your energy is kind of being taken from you, kind of like against your will, the reason why Skydancer Architect said hijacked was because it was sort of like a taking, you know, it was like a kidnapping. It wasn't a choice. So when something is taken from you against your will and then put towards evil, like lying is evil, non-truth is evil, right? Like a lack of reality is evil. So when we are in our egos, that is an active evil. You can say, you know, it's just one way to look at it. It's not the whole picture. And one way we serve evil, you can say, again, you don't have to take this, is you think too much. Because when you think too much, you're agreeing to the hijack. Does this make sense? What's coming up for people? Does anyone want to share?
For me, I just need to kind of grasp the whole that you're saying, just try to imagine it and try to make sense of it.
Okay.
Although it's very clear. I mean, I like the sharpness. It's very clear, very distinct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing. So one thing I asked everyone to do is show up 10 minutes early, and you all did. And by doing that, we created a safe container for this lesson. I'll tell you the truth. Someone came right before we were about to start, like a millisecond before the start of the class. Did I let them in? No. Why? Because I care about the container of this class. So if you have strong boundaries, then you feel safe in your intuition. How would you have felt if I just let that person in? We meditated, we talked, we had onboarding, and then we started the lesson. All of us did that. How would you have felt if, oh, the last person came, let them in? How would you have felt? Skydancer Architect?
Disturbed.
Great. Great. That was a clear answer. So when you don't have a clear boundary, you can't be in your intuition. You don't feel safe. So I'm responding to TE's comment about the sharpness. You have to have a clear boundary about pretty much everything in this dimension, not in other dimensions, right? But in this dimension. So if you don't have a clear boundary about, you know, a lot of intuition comes from, believe it or not, self-value. So if you don't have a clear boundary around your self-value, you're like, I don't know how much I'm worth. You don't have a clear container to feel safe in. Am I worth $1? Or am I worth $1 million? And if you're just not sure, then you're not safe with yourself, because who's responsible for the container? You. So even if you think you're worth $58.67, you're like, that's my worth. Okay, fine. But you have to defend that with your life. Okay, seeing some nods. The other thing that TE said was that she kind of needs to understand it. Like, this is another thing that I have a bone to pick about, like therapy and people who go to therapy, like talk therapy. I'm not saying all talk therapy is bad. It's just I see people getting into a hole with this. And that is, especially if you're beginning on your journey, especially beginners. If I could just understand why my mom did that to me, then I would be, you know, healed, or I would feel better or something like that. There's nothing in this class that you really need to understand. Right? There's nothing in this class that you really need to understand. Okay, Skydancer Architect, what would you say? how do you get that information instead? If you don't need to understand it, how do you get that information instead? Like how is what I'm teaching coming to you and you get it, but you don't have to understand it? Like, what's that faculty instead?
Well, for me, it's just it's the frequency. I just feel it, I sense it.
Yes.
And yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And you also see how clear she's being right now and short. So TE, remember in the beginning, there was a lot of confusion. When I asked you for your intention, there was so much confusion. I'm going to posit that there's a possibility that the exact same reason why you had confusion in the beginning might be why you have some kind of confusion now, where you feel like, okay, I just need some time to like understand. Yeah. Okay. What do you think is up with this confusion?
Okay, first thing came to the mind is distrust.
Distrust. How did that feel with other people in their bodies when she said distrust? Like, did that feel true or not true? Is there anything else? I feel fear.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Sky answer. Yeah, go ahead.
I feel confusion.
You feel confusion right now?
I mean, when I'm tuning into her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And TE, you were going to say something else.
Distrust from fear.
Distrust and fear.
It's
Great.
related.
Okay. Thank you. And you know what's really interesting is I asked the others, not TE, I asked the others, like, how did you feel when she said distrust? And I believe that's when Sky Dancer Architect said confusion. Like, I'm getting confused right now too. Like, all right, so I'm just gonna say it. You can take it or leave it. You don't have to agree with me, but usually when people are confused, it's a mild kind of psychic attack. It depends on the situation. It could be a severe psychic attack. And I actually know people, like real people in real life, who are like severely confused all the time. And when I talk to them, their mental energy is painful to be around, you know? And they're the kind of person who asks everyone for their opinion and they still don't know what to do, right? And they can't make decisions about really dumb little things like what to buy, like just buy that tent. They're like, oh, you know, they're like overwhelmed. This kind of person is agreeing to being a house for an entity and cares more about the entity's well-being than themselves. Everyone nodded very easily to that, but that was a pretty harsh statement to make. So I said that people who are that confused care more about the entity's well-being than themselves. Yes?
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah, okay, all right. So TE, how do you feel about me saying that?
I agree. I just have to accept it, that's what it is.
All right, okay, thank you. I appreciate your being so open. So I'll speak a little bit on this topic. So in all of today, we found that when we're not in our intuition, it's easy to tell because our intuition is short and clear. It feels like truth. It resonates on a frequency, right? It's almost nonverbal. It might be triggered by like a verbal thing, but it's short. But that verbal thing behind it has like a frequency, and that frequency is truth. Okay, so we learned that today. So we learned that when someone's thinking and or talking, which usually goes hand in hand, it's like a different frequency, and that different frequency is lying. What they're saying may not be like an outright lie, right? But it's a lie because it comes from their false self. And it's a lie because they're escaping the present moment. So if I say, oh, last week in therapy, we were talking about this, and then I start telling you about that, I just took us out of the present moment. I'm telling you some freaking story about last week, but I'm not being here with you. I'm scared of being here with you. So remember I was saying that being your false self and doing all this kind of stuff is evil. Here we are having a present moment. Here we are being open with each other. You know, we're developing trust. I think we already have so much more trust now than even like 10 minutes ago. So here we are developing trust. And here I'm the asshole breaking it by telling you of some story about therapy last week. It's so easy to break trust. It's so easy to break trust. Do you see? Okay, so this is how we don't have tight containers for ourselves to have our own intuition. Like, how often do you do those little things where you just kind of start talking about what you learned in therapy last week in order to escape the present moment? Like, if you do that almost like 24/7, of course you don't trust yourself, and of course you're not in your intuition. Does this make sense? Okay, all right. So we learned how easy it is to, in quotation marks, lie, and that most people lie 100% of the time because they're in their false self 100% of the time. And the reason why they do that is because they distrust, they don't feel safe, and we're learning that they feel confused. So confusion is like a whole other thing, because when you like leave the present moment, that's probably just like you, right? Like you did that, you're responsible, you did that. If you have an entity in your system, you're also responsible, but we're going to look at it at a specific angle right now, which is that the entity wanted you to leave the present moment. So the entity gave you a psychic attack and then made you confused. But here, yeah, the thing is, it kind of seems like it comes from not you. But what I say is that entities do the dirty job for you that you don't want to do yourself. So let's say you're a mafia boss and you're supposed to like off someone. Oh, you make an underling do that. You don't want to do that dirty job yourself with your own two hands, you know? That's what entities do. Entities serve you. A lot of times people either are afraid of their own entities or they're overwhelmed. They're like, oh my God, how many do I have? Do you see an entity on me right now? I get this kind of response all the time. Look, if you have an entity, it serves you in some kind of way because it, right? So if you're confused, it feels like it's not your fault if you left the present moment. It feels like you're not the violator. You're like, I'm the victim of my own entity. It's just a cop-out. How is this landing with people?
Almost like spiritual bypassing. It's like we are not taking responsibility.
Okay, what did people hear? So I will say not taking responsibility, yes. Spiritual bypassing, no. Why would I say that? Do you have an answer? Do you have a feel for that? Sky Dancer Architect.
Because when you said entities, I started thinking altars as well. I don't know, I see kind of like.
Okay, so I'm going to go back into this whole thing. Like, you're allowed to think that, and that can genuinely be your reality. You know, like I can't touch that. But for me personally, when you said spiritual bypassing, you were thinking. It was very similar to someone else saying, you know what, we talked about this in therapy last week. It's related, it's true, and so to speak, but there wasn't the frequency of truth. And then when you said just not taking responsibility, boom, you were there. Do you feel the difference? Yes. Okay. Do other people feel the difference? It's okay if you don't. Okay, you're like trying to feel the difference. Steve's trying to. Yeah, Sky Dancer Architect, go ahead.
Yes, the false self so quickly came again first, and then did you all hear that? So it was the fake or false self first, and then the real truth. So lying first and the truth, followed by truth.
That's interesting. You know what's interesting about that is usually your intuition comes first, and then the lie covers it up second. So I'm gonna ask you, you don't have to do it right now. I'm not asking you to work on it right now, but it's like homework for the future if you want to take it. For you in your personal life, see if you can catch the intuition first, that then you cover with the false thing that you say, that you then say out loud, that then if you take time, especially here we found with my guidance, you could have that true stuff come out later. Here, you did it on your own. You said the false thing first and the true thing later, but the true thing comes first. And then I feel like there's a possibility that you cover it down and then say the false thing. So see if you can find that moment where you're like covering that true thing first. So you don't have to, because if I didn't say that, you might go around life like, well, for me, I think the true thing always comes second. So you are doing way too much work, right? true thing comes first, you cover it up. So you say the false thing, then the true things come second. You're like, okay, I'm gonna wait, 5 sentences until this aspect. I'm like, no, you don't have to do that. But it takes, discipline in the beginning. T, what's going on for you? I feel like there was something you wanted to share and just didn't have a chance.
I just want to say it's so instant. Like when you're talking, it's the clarity, it's instant. It connects right away. I guess that's what you mean by being present, and we're all present. And when Sky Dancer was saying spiritual bypassing, I don't understand what that means, but it doesn't seem that. And then she corrected herself. So it's just, I'm delighted. I feel delighted at the connections. So I keep smiling
I
and
love
laughing.
that. I love that. You're probably in your boundaries right now. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm beginning to understand, I'm beginning to see the boundaries.
Yes, yes. Okay, great. So when you're confused, guess what? You're not in your boundaries because you don't feel safe, right? And you're like in charge of you. You're in charge of your own safety. You're in charge of directing yourself. And if you feel confused, oh my God, the captain of the ship is like drunk and hung upside down by some hijacking pirate, right? And you don't feel safe. But when you're in your boundaries, it's easy to laugh. And you're like smiling like crazy, right? Because you're in your boundaries. So when you're in your boundaries, your inner child feels safe. When you're in your boundaries, you're defending the boundaries of your inner child. And guess what? Your inner child is the intuitive one. So when you're not in your boundaries, you're probably defending the boundaries of your entities. I just want to be like, boom, like that really needs to sink in. Like if you're not in your own personal boundaries, you're probably defending the boundaries of your entities. And I say that your false self, AKA your ego, is your in-house entity. You will always have an ego. In my opinion, as long as you're in a human body, you have to have an ego. It keeps you physically safe. The ego is like, oh, I don't want to like step in front of that truck. However, obviously most egos take it way too far and don't keep us from just not stepping in front of the truck, but become parasitical on our bodies. So in my opinion, you just have to keep your ego in check. You need an ego, but you just need to keep it in check. I feel like people are starting to go into their minds now. What's going on? Deanna, what's going on?
Yes, I did start going to my mind. I started to really think about what you were saying. And I felt it. I felt the thinking mind come through. But I was thinking about the ego and how it's an entity. So my thought was, are we creating? You said we're kind of living by our entities. We're living through our entities. We're feeding our entities. So we always have this entity of ego. And how do we? Yeah.
Okay,
How do we get rid of it?
sure. Okay. Thank you for asking that. Just a second. Oh, sorry. Do you mind turning off your audio? Thanks. Okay, so this is what I'll say. First, I'm going to start off with the fact that I was telling people that if you are not within your own boundaries, because TE was smiling like crazy and I was like, she's in her boundaries. Do you know what that feels like now? And she was like, I know now what that feels like. And I was talking about how when you're in your boundaries, you're defending the boundaries of your inner child, who is the intuitive one, as opposed to defending the boundaries of your entities. And everyone's like, okay with that. And then I took it a step further and I said, your ego is your in-house entity. And then people fled. They just fled. They went straight up into their mind. So I just want to point out that your ego didn't want you to hear that. You're like, you got psychically attacked, you can say, like right in that moment, because when you fly into your mind, your ego didn't feel safe. Your ego didn't feel safe with my saying that. So I want to point out that that happened first and foremost. So that's the kind of thing you have to be in control over. I'm going to be like completely straight up. If you want to be in your intuition, you have to have control over that shit that just happened. Okay. It's okay that it happened. It's okay. It's okay that it happened. We're learning off of it. But that shit, okay, like your ego just like made you flee and you allowed it to happen. That's not okay, because you're in charge of yourself, not your goddamn ego. You're in charge of yourself. So this is the work that moment where you left, that's where you do the work with yourself if you want to be in your intuition. So as you can see again and again and again, it takes discipline, it takes intense boundaries. So to answer Deanna's specific question, you can take or leave anything I say, obviously, all the time, right? I don't have to keep repeating that, but I think I want to right now. So if you are healed, then your ego becomes kind of like the child you have space to take care of. It doesn't have to be an entity. But if you're not healed, yeah, it's definitely going to be an entity. It will have more power than you. If you're not healed, you're not in your power, right? So who has the power that is your power? Your goddamn in-house entity. And your goddamn in-house entity, your ego, that is what allows the confusion and allows all the other entities to live in your system. With no ego, I will argue there are no entities. Okay, somehow it just got faster for everyone. That's really interesting. Someone please share with me the experience of themselves immediately getting that, whereas before I said something about your ego being your in-house entity, you flee into your mind. And there was like a leaving feeling, like a distrust feeling, like, yeah, I don't want to be in the present moment kind of feeling. But here I said that like with no ego, there are no other entities, and people just kind of immediately got that. It was an opposite reaction. Could someone please just share with me what your experience of that was? Yeah.
Yeah, ego being a gatekeeper. I kind of label it as a gatekeeper. That's how I experienced it.
That was a thought.
At this moment, you know, in my body, I feel and sense everything. It's almost like I don't want to even talk. I don't know what's going on, but it's really, I'm like, it's all here. You don't have to say anything. It's like, I'm just being aware.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So I'll definitely add on to that and say that usually when you're in your intuition, you don't have to say or explain. And sometimes talking feels dirty. Like talking is like a lower frequency than where you're at. Because if you're at the truth frequency, right? I'm gonna just say intuition is the truth frequency. That's my opinion. Which is why when you're in your intuition, it feels effing good. That's why when you're in your intuition, it's automatically healing because, you know, I'll go into it a little bit. So if most people think of the universe as out there, they kind of know, oh, yeah, I'm one with the universe, I'm a part of the universe, blah, 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 but they don't feel it. They actually hate themselves, right? And so they think all the time, they talk too much, they're in their minds, they're confused, they have a lot of entities, whatever, they don't know how to leave their ego, they have no capacity to do the work we just did in class so far. I pointed out like 500 things that I think you'll be able to do in real life if you pay attention and apply the discipline. As you can see, we've introduced like easily 10 specific practices that you can do in real life, but we just introduced them. We just touched on them, right? In your life is when you have to like do the thing. Like if you see yourself fleeing, you have to bring yourself back. So back to being one with the universe, truth, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, let's just say the universe is that truth frequency. And your intuition is your connection to the universe. And so when you have an intuition, it is that truth frequency. There's like no denying it, the way that you just can't deny mathematical concepts, you know, like you just can't deny in some ways like beauty of like the sacred geometry of a flower or something. I think we'll almost universally, unless we are truly, really, really evil people, universally respond to the beauty of the sacred geometry of a fresh flower. So that is naturally healing, because you can only be in your intuition when you're in your boundaries and you feel safe with yourself. TE, I see you leaving. Do you mind turning on your audio?
Sorry, I'm imaging it. I'm imaging it, what you're
Okay.
saying.
Okay,
Connecting
okay.
to it.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Okay, just a second. Okay, so this is what I'll say. When you're in your intuition, you are connected with the universe, and there's no discrepancy that your mind usually or your ego usually puts in there. Therefore, you love yourself. That self-hatred feeling that most people have an extraordinarily strong self-hatred feeling that they push into their shadow. That's not present because you're connected with yourself, the universe. Therefore, does the universe hate itself? Obviously not. So that's why it's like this, there's energy in the room right now, by the way. I'm just reporting, it's okay, but I'm just reporting that I feel energy, like mental energy. It doesn't have to be you. It can just be, let's say, present. So I feel myself fighting through it in order to deliver this message to you. So I'm just reporting that, so we can all just be, aware. So when you're in your intuition, that self-hatred frequency is not present. The self-hatred frequency is present when you flee and when you lie. I think we've already experienced this today, right? When you flee and lie, that self-hatred frequency is present. So like the automatic self-love that comes from already being healed is present when you're in your intuition. And therefore, if you talk from that place, unless it's short and clear and you're talking to someone also in their intuition, it can feel very dirty. Because now you're explaining dumbass shit to people who hate themselves. They're not in their intuition, and you have to go down, right? Yeah. And so I feel you when you're like, oh, I feel everything in my body and I get it and I don't have to talk about it. Great. Thank you for reporting that. What came up for people as I was sharing that? Deanna, did you want to say something and then you're holding back?
No, I really, well, I resonate with the feeling of, yeah, not wanting to talk, because I feel like also when asked certain things, I do get in my head. I start thinking so how did I feel?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank
But
you.
when I was listening to you, it just resonated. I
Interesting.
just felt it.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for talking. Yeah, I think this is why I actually made a baby post on this in Telegram. That's why we have therapy animals. They don't effing talk. Talking is dangerous, puts you in your mind. But you know what they do have? They have intuition and presence. And that is very, very healing. So, I mean, I'm totally okay with us just being present with each other for the rest of the class. I do give individual sessions, and a lot of the sessions are us being extraordinarily present with each other. We're not necessarily silent. We do notice things like we're doing today, but that presence, especially when right now there's more than one person in the room with me, but when there's just one person in the room with me, we can kind of go with it. We can go with some silence for some while. And again, it's ineffable. It's ineffable, but to lower the frequency and talk to you about it, it's very healing, and it's very spontaneously the tears and laughter come up together, and there's such a full feeling, and all we can do is just smile at each other with our eyes full of everything. So yeah, I advocate this healing through being in your intuition. And I've done so many healing modalities. I've either been the client or the facilitator. I've taken so many certificate trainings, and all of those have their place, just like talk therapy has its place. But my personal thing, the thing that I think is available to everyone, that you don't have to go to anyone for, you don't have to have a session with anyone for, is to just be in your intuition. Okay. Any thoughts, questions, or comments so far?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I feel you on just being in your intuition. And if I may ask, like, what's up with the fear? Because it does feel good to be in the intuition and it feels healing. But what's up with the fear? Why do I immediately knock myself out? Is that an entity presenting itself? Or is that my ego just like fearful?
That's a good question. I can read that question, but then just basically for today, letting the rest of the two of you know, Deanna's gotten 2 readings and the other 2 haven't today. And that's just how it's going to go today. I could ask someone else to feed me that question, but the answer will be different. So Deanna, do you mind asking me, like, what is up with the fear?
What is up with the fear?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this may or may not resonate, so you take it or leave it. And I actually think that this is like literally a universal truth. It's like a universal experience of being on Earth, where fear is the tool that, let's say, kidnappers use. Like, they compulse you to do something by making you afraid of something, right? And so for you, all of the entities in your body, outside of your body, in all of society, all of the entities, which is like all of evil incarnate on Earth, everything that creates the matrix, everything that creates things like debt systems, you know, everything that creates all the stuff that like puts poison in our bodies and causes, especially women, to feel shame, you know, but like pretty much everyone feels shame. But especially in our society, it's like easy for women to be targeted, you could say. Like all the entities, like all of them, plus entities in your system, plus your ego, right? They can use fear to convince you to be like, all right, I'm going to stuff down my inner child. And I'm going to agree to your disgusting program. And I'm going to play along. Because there's just like, they convinced you. Like, I know this might be a weird analogy, so I'll just use it and it may or may not work. But anyway, so with the kidnapping analogy, if they're like, give us $1 million or else we're going to kill your kid, you're probably going to give them $1 million. And there's still no guarantee what's going to happen to your kid. But if you say, I don't care, you do whatever you want with my kid, I'm not going to give you $1 million. Your kid may or may not be at risk. We don't know, but you're not capitulating. So you're staying within your sovereignty. I know this is a weird example. We're using a kid and everything like that, but we kind of have to do that for right now because that's what's present. So with you, you have an inner child. And if the fear works, then you're going to capitulate. You're going to agree to the reality of evil, which is why it's so easy to leave. You flee, right? You just flee the present moment. And it's so weird too. Like, why would you flee the present moment? Because there's nothing that you should be fearful of, right? No one has any, like, there's nothing. We are all sitting in our rooms right now. There's nothing fearful that's happening right now, but people have been fleeing the present moment a lot, you know? So why are we fleeing? That's what I'm saying. It's that false fear thing is what convinces you to agree to the reality of evil. So then you're participating in evil by fleeing, lying, thinking, and like suffocating your inner child. So again, this is so weird. I forgot where I posted this. I think it was on Telegram again, but like I was talking about, I forgot where I posted this, whatever. But unless there's immediate fear, like immediate reasons to feel fear, like a lion is charging at you and you are about to die. Like, unless there's that kind of reason to feel fear, all other fear is illusory. So when you agree to it, that's when you give up your power. That's when you go into your mind, you lose your intuition, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you could say here that fear is a really good psychic attack. When I work with people, I see a lot of people giving their power away because they fear losing a relationship. They don't want to lose their sister, you know, they don't want to lose their mother. They don't want to lose their standing in society. All of it has to do with social gain. And they prostitute themselves. They really lose their dignity and prostitute themselves. And they're not in their intuition, and they allow themselves to be confused, right? And they allow themselves to like feed these like fear and shame entities. And now you have this weird relationship with your sister where they have a relationship with you, but you secretly hate her, or not so secretly hate her. Or you have your job, but you like effing hate it, and you hate yourself every single morning you get up to go there, and you slave away. So I see people prostituting themselves because of this false fear, and because they care about the social gain. So, you know, that's another topic we didn't talk about too much today, but basically, when you care too much about the social gain, then you're going to agree to leave your intuition. And when you care more about yourself, your inner child, obviously, then you can be more in your intuition. But you have to be willing to risk the social gain. And I don't think we like any kind of hero that's like, oh, well, let me just capitulate with evil because I'm afraid of what's going to happen if I don't. Like, we like the hero that like forges their own path. I mean, this is so quite obvious. So to me, I think it's really important. If you love yourself, you have to risk all of your social connections, all of them, all of them. You have to risk all of your social connections if you love yourself. If you don't love yourself, of course, you're just going to give all your energy to your like delinquent brother, right? Or your nagging mother, or whatever you give your energy to. Some people like to give their energy to like nonprofit organizations, like we're saving the ocean of plastic and I'm just going to be a slave to that organization. Like people like, it depends on your ego, but each ego has their in, you know? So one concluding statement about this topic, the fear, where does the fear come from? Where's your in? Where's your in? And it's related to social gain. So that's something to just contemplate on your own afterwards. Like, where's your in for your social gain? Like the fear of losing the social gain. And it's probably related to your ego. Some people, I'm a high-powered lawyer, you know, da, 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 da. Yes, good answer.
Choice. So it's almost in both scenarios, what you said, I feel that when we don't choose ourselves, but that's when the fear comes. Do I make sense? So it's like we allow, because when you are choosing yourself, whether it's with your parents, your relatives, or, you know, whatever situation, there's no fear. It's not present because you are in your intuition. You're choosing your own truth. But fear only, you know it, at least for me, I know because it's 9 out of 10, I'm in fear. I know I'm not being authentic because I have a presence of fear.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I don't deny everything you're saying, but there's that frequency of like thinking that masquerades very closely to the truth with a capital T. It's just the frequency, it's not the words, because I like your words, but it's the frequency. One hole I'll poke in there, if that's possible, is, and you can take it or leave it, is this, we flee the present moment when we're just effing by ourselves at home. You know, we distract ourselves. People, by the way, people who 24/7 listen to like radio music and they love their favorite bands and they have all these songs, you know, they have playlists, they hate being by themselves. They hate themselves. So what you're talking about, like choice, like, you know, we flee ourselves, you know, so like, it's not necessarily the family members and all the other things. Okay. So we're going to start wrapping up Today, we had a really interesting day. We had a lesson that was created by the energy of everyone present who showed up. And thank you again. Thank you so much for coming early, meditating, and being present. And you in the room helped create this container for us to have this really beautiful lesson. And what we learned today was all the little things we do that we watched each of us do. We all did it, like, just like, you know, leave, talk, feel that distrust, you know, all these things that we do, that's where we can start our intuition practice. Just a second. We talked about evil, like all of evil, and how we participate by being that false self, by lying, you know, by talking that's not the truth. And just to sum it up, when you're in your intuition, it's short, it's clear, and there's a frequency. Okay, so could you please, we have 5 minutes left. Could you please go around and just say what you learned today? Like, what are your big ahas? Like, we're gonna kind of close up. So everyone has around a minute and a half. Who wants to start? It's a good answer.
Yeah, the trust, the presence of myself, the truth, it's more validated now. You know, the frequency is stronger. I mean,
love it.
There's more belief now.
Thank you. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And you know, what's really, let's say in quotation marks, good about a class like this is I'll guarantee you that I'll be in my truth frequency. I'll guarantee you that I'll be in my intuition. I'll guarantee it. And therefore I create that backbone for us to play off of, is basically what happened here today. And so when you are in your truth with someone else, and not truth like this is my political ideology truth, right? No, right? Your inner truth with someone else who's in their inner truth is very, very safe. And I think that's basically something about what you said today. And I really appreciate that. Thank you for saying that. And yeah, since everything is frequency, yes, since everything is frequency, enhancing this frequency is basically what you can do in real life. And you can enhance this frequency by being in nature. You can enhance this frequency by all the practices we noticed today, or the practices that can come out of what we saw today. Okay, anyone else? TE? Or Deanna?
Oh, that's me.
Yeah.
What I'm taking away is that I'm going to practice staying true to my boundaries, like holding my boundaries with my ego and not letting it kind of wash away because of the social construct that creates that fear. Yeah, just keeping that boundary and watching that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a really good, let's say, noticing inner practice you're taking away. You know, what's really interesting is like, if you keep that control of your ego, then who is ultimately the one in charge? Who's doing that? So you don't have to answer that. But that begs the question, because usually people are just carried away by their egos. Okay. The more you feel safe with yourself, the less you have to rely on your ego. I mean, that's like duh, right? but when you feel it, it's really amazing. It's really, really amazing. That's why it's easier to just not care what other people think, you know, and this is the biggest thing, not allow shame attacks, like shame psychic attacks, not allow them to work anymore. The more shame drains from your system, the more easy it is for you to be in your intuition. Because my argument is that you're naturally intuitive. The problem is there's junk on top of that. So you don't have to you can't stay the same and then do something to become more intuitive. Like you can't stay the same, and I would be a charlatan. Seriously, I'd be a fat charlatan if I was like, pay me money, I'm gonna lead you through a 30-minute intuitive meditation that helps you be in your intuition. Okay, yeah, I know that exists and I don't mean to like slander people, but like, it's a practice you do on your own, and it has to do with unfurling and unlayering, right? You don't add another shit thing on top. You don't do something on top. You've realized today that you actually do less. You have to force yourself to do less, right? Stop talking, stop thinking, right? So if you're doing all that weird shit, and then on top of that, I'm like, let's do a 30-minute meditation with the sound bath music to be in our intuitions. What is that? What is that? Okay, so I'm gonna say that, sorry, it's kind of like Skydance Architect, when you talk and you say good stuff, but it's not quite the truth frequency. I would say that's what that is. It's good stuff, but it's just not quite the truth frequency. Okay, now we're out of time. So TE, could you please quickly share your conclusion statement?
All right, I'm excited. I'm excited to practice after tonight. Well, it's nighttime here. So when I wake up tomorrow morning, I'm excited to try to feel, to see, to be in my intuition and feel the frequency. And, you know, the word that comes to my mind is instant. It's always going to be instant. And it's also very, very quick to be covered. So need to catch that moment. So
Great.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so
for this.
welcome. You're very, very welcome. And thank you for sharing that. And it's really beautiful. You know what? I love feeling your frequency because you're in there right now. Like, do the other people in the room feel that? Like, you see it in her face, like you're in there right now. So thank you for sharing yourself with us. It's always fun to be with someone who's in their intuition. It's really relaxing. It's very similar to the, yeah. All right, so that is it for today. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for the work you did today. Everyone applied themselves. I'm really proud of everyone. So I'll see you next time, and I'll say goodbye to everyone out there, and bye. Thanks for listening.